Welcome to Life in the Music Business, a masterclass with Professor Pooch and your host, BACEFACE.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to Life in the Music Business with Professor Pooch. As you can see, I currently have a new location. I'm in the process of opening my own studio, and so that's where I'm at the moment. So let's start it off. Pooch, how you doing tonight?
I'm fine. What you have there looks really cool. Uh, you know, you've had a studio before, but this is a studio or something,
I've had home studios. I worked at a bunch of different studios, but now I can officially say that I'm going to actually have my own recording studio that's dedicated to production, songwriting, and basically everything, like a one-stop shop.
That's great. That's perfect. Um, and where were we? Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Pooch. Or the mad professor, whatever you want to call me and stuff. I wanted to jump on something really quick that a lot of people don't know about. We've talked about the MMA and that's the Music Modernization Act, but we've basically worked it with talking about different writers and things like that, and and what you have to sign up for. But an interesting thing also went through with the Music Modernization Act, and that is that for the first time in history, producers, mix engineers, and engineers can be on the copyright.
Oh my Lord.
And you can get paid. Now, what you have to do is when the artist signs up with Sound Exchange, I don't know if we've done the 3-part series, which order we're going. I don't think we did.
Yeah, no, we went through it before, but we're still in the process of releasing them episode-wise.
Yeah. Well, Sound Exchange, real simple, is Sound Exchange is to artists and recordings, the record company, as ASCAP and BMI is to the songwriter and publisher. Now, what you need to do if you're a producer, mix engineer, etc., so you get some of the royalties, is you have to get the artist, when signing up, or to notify Sound Exchange for the particular recording about who's the producer, who's the mix engineer, who's the engineer. You can do this. Now, the producer engineer should tell the artist so that they do it, request it. So all you engineers out there, producers and stuff, you can get paid starting in January 2021, which we're recording this now in December of 20. And it's just something that isn't reported much. And I thought I should, remember to tell we're always talking about the writers and we talk about producers from the studio point of view, but getting paid, that's another way to get paid. So you can get a certain amount of royalties from Sound Exchange, who's been given that power to do that. So it's an interesting thing. It has to do with satellite radio or the internet, because it has to do with the recordings. That is in the United States. Okay.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's a huge thing. That's a huge step for us as producers, engineers in the music industry to actually be able to get paid. Because, as we all know, and you guys probably know just from listening to our podcast, that majority of the artists in the game are being ripped off. And the whole business model of a label is to take advantage of the artist because there's so many expenses that have to get paid and blah, blah, blah. And they basically use all their money for it. But now this is a hopeful point. This is like the new turning point in the music industry.
Well, even the writers and the artists have been left out of a lot of things, because where they list things on Spotify and stuff. In the old days, we had vinyl records, or cassettes or CDs, and it would list everything, who the producer is, the name of the song, the name of the artist, the name of the writers. But it's been kind of lost in the digital process. Now, one thing I recommend, it's something I do when I do a recording of me, you know, or something through my music or something like that, say it's on YouTube. What I do is in the description box underneath, I list every single person, the background singers, the engineers, the mastering engineer, or whomever, whatever, you know, it's just, they should be given at least credit, but now here's a chance to getting paid.
Yeah, and a side note, actually, one thing that I found interesting working my way up through the studio model, basically, you know what I mean, building up and gaining my credibility that way, is that a lot of engineers, it depends on the studio. If say like a major artist comes through a studio, like majority of the time, the people that were in the room don't get credit. And my experience, it's the larger studios, the more, you know what I mean, the top, the upper echelon of studios, the ones that basically only work with labels and stuff like that, make sure that everybody gets credit and it's all taken care of. So if you're not in a studio that's like at that level, you have to make sure that you're on top of that and being able to get your credits, because I mean, even being an assistant engineer or studio personnel, I mean, you could have the potential of winning a Grammy just by being in the room. If you have,
I know people that have won Grammys as an assistant engineer, but you want to see the names. So I recommend you tell the artist, look, or put it into the contract between the engineer and the artist, or whoever's hiring. It could be the label hiring or whatever, to state that I, as mix engineer, request that, you know, you notify Sound Exchange that I should be paid what I'm due.
of course.
So, you know, this is up to the artist, it's up to the managers, it's up to, I think it's fair, folks. You know, what people hear, I mean, it starts with the song, but what people hear is made up of instruments and recordings and all. I mean, in films, they talk about, you know, who the photographer is, the, you know, videographer is, and things like that. And they match up with music. We've been through that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, you should get paid as well, but God, at least make sure they're listed every place too. It's fair. And then somebody could say, oh, I like that song. Who's the producer? Let's see. I'm going to get them to produce my next recording.
Exactly. And I mean, nowadays it's a totally different ballgame, because like, as we all know, TikTok has been a huge catalyst in the ability of a record to break, or it's like they're almost taking the place of radio. Because I mean, radio is still huge, but like this is like the new age ability to break a record. And I mean, you can there's a lot of money out here to be made, and you just have to make sure you're protected. And that's why we're here, to give you guys that information, to be able to take your career to the next level and actually be respected, protected, and paid, and treated as a professional in the game.
There you go. That's perfectly put. I want to go to a main topic here, even though that was important. But a topic here is, here it is. We're recording this in December of 2020, and we've gone through since March that we know of, with all the virus and all this stuff like that. And we see it's going to be going further, and it's going to be lasting longer. And what I want to do is, I know it's really hard on people. A lot of people, you know, I'm used to hibernating because I have everything here, as you can see in my studio. But there's a lot of people that are just lost. They're so used to going out and stuff. And, you know, the problem is that everybody wants the old normal. Well, folks, I'm going to be honest with you. The old normal's never going to happen again. And we're not going to see what the new normal turns out to for a good 2 to 5 years. That's what my guess is, till it settles in, about maybe 4 or 5 years. But what I want to make it is that I see so many people having, and mental health is a major issue, and I believe we touched on that with some episodes. We never know the orders of what we have, but we know what we've covered. Just my thing is, listen to all the episodes. It's the whole picture is what everybody really needs. So that's really important. But I want to make it so that people seeing, oh my God, it's longer and longer. I lasted this long. And now they say, it's going to be really bad. And they talk about these vaccines, but they don't, et cetera, et cetera. So what I want to do is try to get people in the right mindset to handle everything. And the funny part of what it all comes down to, I'm going to go much deeper into it, but what it all comes down to is you only have one thing you can totally control in your life, and that is your attitude, how you look at something, your attitude. Everything in the universe has opposites. And you think, oh God, what am I going to do? I'm here by myself. I can't do what I want to do and stuff like that. Well, let me explain why, and I'm going to tell you some answers of how to solve some of these, the situations where you're going out of your mind, because things are different than they were. And yes, they are. But you do have the power to control, at least to a point, what your new normal is going to be like. Yeah, there'll be things happening. But this is where part of the problem is, and it really shows up when you're at home. We've been blessed as human beings with 5 senses. You can hear, you can see, touch, smell, and taste. But there's one thing in common between all of the senses. You want to take a guess at it?
In common with all the senses is the brain that operates the senses, or the mind that is, you know what I mean, that can perceive all of the senses. Because I feel like if you're
Perception is a good point in there, by the way. Perceiving, and we're going to get into more of perception. But yes, but there's something else that really ties it together. Everything, all these 5 senses, what they do is react to something that is already there. It already exists. In a way, it's in the past. That food you eat is by somebody else. The people you touch, they're there already. You hear things, it's already out there. And what I want to do is introduce some new senses to you that we don't use enough. You'll recognize some, but they're like muscles and have to be worked. And this is one way out of, I'm used to being outside. I could see, I could hear, and you see the same 4 walls or wherever it is that you're existing in. Okay. So let's look at some of there are actually 6 inner intellectual senses that we all have, but a lot of us have forgotten how to use. Number 1, and this is something you're going to recognize, is your imagination, where you have the power to create things and just let loose and create all kinds of things yourself. In other words, with these other 5 senses, we're reacting to something it is, to somebody else that's made it, somebody else that's done it, whatever. Here we have a chance with our imagination of putting our own ideas and things out into the world. And that's a major, major thing. We want to create our own world, what other people will then see and hear and taste and touch and smell. We want to create something. Yeah, we're stuck in these walls, but we can create these different things. We want to create our own future that we can actually stand.
And the one thing that actually has come across my table in the past week is that I actually really started to get into Frank Zappa and his documentaries. This is just a side note. He was the type of person that if you didn't like what he was doing, he didn't care. He was doing it what he wanted and created music that he wanted. And if people liked it, then so be it. If they didn't like it, then so be it. But either way, he was going to do what he wanted to do. And that really helped me, because I mean, like, as Pooch is saying, the quarantine is really tough. And we're going to get back to his points in a second. The quarantine is really tough. And you have to be able to just say, hey, man, I'm going to do what I got to do. And it doesn't matter what's happening outside of here. It matters what I'm focusing on and putting my energy into, and the energy I give back into the world, because that's like we are like large magnets. Anything that we put out into the world, we give, we will receive. You know, if we just take, then the bad things will happen to us, or we'll have more negative energy towards us. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of, like Pooch said, it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So the positivity
Yes.
is huge.
Well, part of it, I mean, you hit a lot of good points in there. They're going to show up in some of the things we're talking about. But the problem is, we're all born with an amazing imagination. Watch little kids before people have shut them down. They'll play with things. It's in their imaginations. They're doing it. Watch little kids before they've been mistreated in a way, almost abused in a way, where they're in a classroom and they say, Johnny, stop looking out the window. Yeah, they're trying to bring in your creativity. They're raising, and people have heard me say this, like they're raising automatons in the United States. They want you to follow the rules and get a job, not have a career. Yeah. We're into people having their own career. So yes, it's very, very important. And like the stuff you were talking about, we're going to be getting into quite a bit of that as we go through stuff here. All right, let's go to number 2. The will. W-I-L-L. Will goes along with the word focus, which goes along with the word self-discipline, which people hate that term. You're going to find out that the most successful people in the world are self-disciplined. But I know it's a horrible sounding word, so you are welcome to change the word self-discipline to something else, like self-leadership. You know, God, if you're not going to listen to anybody else, at least listen to yourself. But the will gives you the power to focus on one thing. You have that power, that self-discipline, that's something. Pooch, you got to get that done. Work on it now. Get it done. Okay? So that's just a very important thing, is your will and, you know, focusing and stuff. I'm going to tell you a little funny side thing that will help you to focus even better. A couple things, actually. One is having the night before, do a to-do list with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the next day, what you do is you say number 1. So you work on number 1. You forget about 2 to 6 or whatever. Just focus on number 1, get it done. Fine, you've accomplished something. Then you go to step 2. Forget all about 1. It's done. And we're not up to 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's a very important thing, is the keeping a note and stuff. You know, notes and following a list and stuff. The other thing is learning is to make it so much easier for you to work in whatever space you're in, especially if you're stuck in a house, is get rid of all the clutter in front of you. You've probably heard me say this before. You don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain, and your brain sees all this. I have to do it periodically. I see, because I'm looking at my desk with my monitor on and stuff like that. And I'm looking and, you know, oh, Pooch, you got to clear this place up. Your brain has to focus, and, you know, you might not be thinking about these other things, but it gets your brain occupied on all kinds of things that have nothing to do with what you're doing. So at least your work area, keep it clear of all clutter. I mean, I put drawers here, I put stuff in it, and I'll pile something out of my sight line so I can actually get something done. So that will help your will and focus. They're very important things, and don't be afraid to self-discipline yourself.
Very good points, Pooch. Yeah, self-discipline is huge, especially in our business. It varies for every position in the music industry, but mainly producers and mixers, engineers, and stuff like the creative side is like a lot of people wait for inspiration to come to them. Like they're gonna like Zeus is sitting up in the sky with lightning bolts, and he just threw inspiration at you. It's like no, you have to like have the willingness, like Pooch is saying, to get up, sit in the studio. For me, get up, rent a space, build my own studio so that I'm out of my house. I'm not next to my bed. I'm not next to at the kitchen where I can get lost for at least 2 hours, or you know. I had to get up and get my own place to be able to have the willingness. When I walk in here now, as you can see, like for the people that are listening, you're not gonna be able to see it, but I mean, I just had studio panels all set up in my studio. I have a new 65-inch TV. I have a custom studio desk in here. I mean, it helped me be able to take that next step, and it was a risk I was willing to take because I knew that it would really push me to the next level, and that's where we're at now.
Well, my thing is invest in yourself. They're finding out more and more that banks don't make any sense. You know, why's the music? The money is sitting in the bank. It's not making you any money. See, when I was a kid, you can get 5 or 6% interest for having a savings account. You were making money. Now, what's the point? But if you're going to invest in something, invest in yourself. I mean, that takes confidence. But the thing is that reason they don't do what you do, a lot of it is fear. And fear can hold you back from so many things in your life. My thing is back to that word attitude. It might come in several times here. How you look at something. But the fear is holding you back. What good does that do? Why not look at the fear of opening your own studio, for example, to the challenge and take it a step further, an opportunity. Turn the fear into a challenge and an opportunity that's doing something positive for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, sometimes you're not always supposed to think twice, and you're not always supposed to make the right move. I mean, just taking that step forward and doing it, and find, like, you could sit here. I could have sat here, right, as from my perspective, could have sat here, pondered, and thought, what are the positives, what are the negatives, what are the pros, what are the cons. I just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting it all on the line. If I can't bet on myself, then who am I going to put my money on?
Yeah, I mean, and you've shown some success. So, you know, why not invest in yourself? I mean, you could do everything you want to do. You've wanted to do it. Take control of your own life. And, you know, people say, well, that costs money. Well, make the money, use your imagination, make the money, find ways of making money. Don't find reasons for problems, find reasons for solutions. Don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive.
And it's a lot harder than it seems, believe me, especially
It is.
I mean, for me, I'm like heartbroken because all the venues, I started off as an EDM DJ, and I still produce EDM, but I've gone more towards like pop and all different types of genres, and use my electronic abilities to do that as well as my musical abilities. But that's on the side. I'm heartbroken because all the venues that I used to play as an up-and-coming DJ, opening for the opening acts, and just being able to get my foot in the door, like Voltage Lounge in Philadelphia and a few other venues, I mean, that basically kickstarted my career, are going bankrupt. They're closed down. I mean, the music scene and live venue scene is just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but see, you've looked for a solution instead of saying, oh man, they closed down. What am I going to do? And all this stuff, self-pity kinds of stuff. You're doing something about it. Whatever it takes to do, you know, find a way. There's always an answer.
Yeah, truth be told, I mean, so I was working for Live Nation for a while, and I was working in the VIP area. So I was the person that would go down, talk to the crowd, introduce myself, whatever, and then upgrade you to a seat on the upper level where you have your own seat, your bartender, all this stuff. And I mean, truth be told, at that moment, I worked there for like about 2 years. I just felt in my gut. I don't know what happened. I love my job. I love the people I worked with. I was making decent money. And something in my gut said, Johnny, it's time to move on. And for me, moving on was going to New York and working in a larger studio than I had ever been in. And it's so funny that I took that risk on myself. I did it for a year, and then we ended up being in COVID, and everything, the whole dynamic and paradigm of the entire world is now.
And you're set. And you're set.
Exactly.
Wait, and the funny part is, you just brought up a third inner sense, inner intellectual sense.
Sound effect. Dun, 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 dun.
And that is your intuition. That's that gut feeling. It's like the phone rings and for some reason you know who it is. Or something, you're picking up somebody, things. It's just your gut intuition. Everybody has it. When you meet a person for the first time, immediately you get some kind of a perception, a feeling. And, your gut says, stay away, or they're cool, or I want to meet you, that kinds of a thing. Your intuition is the third of what we've gone through today, of the inner senses that they need exercise. They're like muscles. And by the way, going back to the creativity for a second, people say, well, I'm not creative. Folks, everybody's creative. You're born that way. You've been knocked down. Just let loose. And it's like a muscle. Work on it, Well, I want to write songs, but I never wrote one. So I'll just start writing, and whatever comes out, see what happens. It's not going to do any good just sitting in your brain. That's for sure.
It's funny, right? So I think it's hilarious that we go throughout our whole life and we have different stages that we go through. So example being that, like, when we were children, we all, whether or not you want to admit to it, we've all had an imaginary friend, right? Always, right? But now, as a 25-year-old person, if I told you I had an imaginary friend after all the systematic, all the information that's been pushed on us and all how they've really kept us down and out of the creative zone throughout our whole life, school system and all that. I mean, if I told you I had an imaginary friend, you'd probably call the loony bin and have me shipped.
Hey, look, I will admit, where do you think I got the Pooch name from? I had these imaginary pooches because we couldn't have a dog for whatever reason. I don't remember. It was another lifetime ago. And my imaginary friends were pooches. They're doggies. So I got called Pooch, and kind of worked out okay 50 years later, But no, actually, boy, does this bring up a major subject we can get too lost in. But you don't want to lose the little child in you. There's a place in the Bible, it's in Ecclesiastes. There's a time and a place. Yeah, there's a time to be an adult. Man, I'm going to let my little kid out all he wants to do to play. It's just, I don't give a damn what people think. Remember, whatever anybody thinks about anybody, about anything, is an opinion. It's their opinion. Your art, what you're going to do. It's just like you up in the studio. I bet you a lot of people might have said, man, you're crazy. In today's world, you're going to open a studio out there in the COVID, but you're doing it. And you don't have to worry, because when the clients aren't there, you could do your own music, but you have your own space and you have it together. I mean, I think that's all cool.
Yeah, it's actually funny because, I mean, I feel like the best example I have is being like don't let the child inside of you die and your imagination go away. It's like, have you ever been in a this goes to the entire audience. Have you guys ever been in a situation where, like, you got in trouble, say at school or something, and you go and get put into the principal's office, and for some reason they're yelling at you and telling you what you did wrong and all this stuff, but you can't help but like stop laughing. Like, you're sitting there laughing so hard because you see, like, for me, for instance, the one time it happened, like, I saw, like, I was being yelled at by the principal, but like I for some reason in my brain, I saw him dressed as a clown. They're yelling at me, pointing at me, but he was a clown with a red nose, and I was just like, I couldn't stop laughing. I started dying. I mean, those little things is they're important, because I mean, it's like,
yeah. Do you know how many times I got kicked out of class because and this is something, well, back to the schooling system. We'll do a whole thing on schooling system sometime, but it's really hard to ask a young kid to sit still for an hour straight. I'm sorry. I was happy to be sent out of the classroom to sit on a bench because I could just daydream or do whatever I wanted to do and stuff. But I somehow got through school and stuff like that. But whatever. But
Dude, I was always drawing, so I'd always get kicked out of class. They're like, "Stop drawing pictures. Stop doing this." I'm just like,
well, I was the worst artist in the world. When they asked us to paint something, I left it all white, and the teacher was there. What are you doing? I said, it's a ghost in a snowstorm. Which the kids laughed. She wasn't happy.
yeah.
But true story. Okay. By the way, you brought in something else in a couple things you were saying, and that perception. Perception. This is another of the inner senses. We're up to number 4 now, I believe. Perception is how you view everything. Now, perception comes from since the day you were born and possibly in your genes from past relations. They say it goes back 14 generations DNA, I don't know. But what happens is all these ways you were raised and, your teachers, your parents, your friends and stuff like that, give you a point of view about other things and other people, the perception. And everybody has a perception. My thing is to try to keep it clear, but trust your gut. If somebody says that person's dangerous, that's happened. But perception, the point of view is very important in a sense that to pick up things, to perceive things, it's things that people don't know. A great example of perception is you're a band and you're able to play, let's say in a stage and it's out there and stuff. It could be at a drive-in nowadays and stuff, but you're out there on the stage. What do people see when they see you? What they perceive, who you are. That's why it's so important, your show. The whole entertainment we show. But we don't want to go too far off the subject because we usually run way over time anyhow. But yes, your perception, your point of view. And look, remember something. When you're out there in public, you see people for the first time, but they're also seeing you for the first time. Look at it both ways. What do they see? And a part of it is from the way they were raised and their prejudices and biases and all kinds of things like that. It's a lot of it's sad. I mean, because some of the bias and prejudice are just ridiculous. My thing's real simple. Everybody has red blood as human. That's all I care about. Okay, you got red blood? Good. You're human. You're equal.
And there's a few things that actually helped me throughout my whole career, right? So when you're having the worst day ever, and this is the first thing, when you're having the worst day ever and you feel like the world is against you and no matter what you do, you can't, the shitty stuff can't stop happening to you, right? If you force yourself to smile and you just put a smile on your face and you actually try hard to smile,
it makes you laugh. I start laughing. You're right.
Exactly.
I say the same thing. Yeah, people just, if you have to force it at first, act it first, like you're an actor, act it first. But when I do that, it just makes me break up laughing.
You take yourself too seriously sometimes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people take the world too seriously. I mean, everything in their life too seriously. Everything's the end of the world to them. All this negative drama stuff. And I might as well get into it right here. But this is a very important thing. If you learn nothing from today, this is the most important thing in my opinion. It is so important to stay away from toxic, negative people, the drama queens and kings with all this negative energy that's going to drain your positive energy. You will find out as soon as you get rid of all these toxic, negative people that try to drag you down, like, you'll never make it in music or this, get rid of all those people. It's not easy. It could be family, you know, and it's hard when you're stuck in there. But you have to learn to observe without getting drawn into the drama.
And it also, should be a side note. Remove drama people, negative people, toxic people from your life, no matter how important they are, whether in the music industry or whatever. Don't let somebody's status, don't take abuse from somebody based on their status or their credentials. Or just because somebody has credits doesn't mean that they are really, you know what I mean, all that. I've seen people pay for their way to get onto songs. I've seen people pay for their songs that went number one on the billboards and stuff. So never let toxic people control who you are as a person. And the one line that I always say, I meant to bring it up earlier, but there's two things that I also say. And when I force myself to smile, that's the one thing that I do. And then constantly over time, especially during these times, you got to kind of give yourself some motivational like mantras, right? So for me, it's like anywhere I am, or like, so I'll start with the other one. Like, I'm the baddest mother effer around on earth, and nobody, and anywhere I am is the place to be. And you have to think like I'm worth it. I'm healthy.
And you got to feel it though. You got to feel like it. When you say it, you have to feel it like you really are, because the subconscious will then take that in.
Exactly. Anywhere you are is the place to be. So as long as you walk around with your chin up and your chest out, and you know that you everything that you have to offer is enough. You are enough. And nobody else needs to clarify that for you. You don't need to take anybody else's opinions, because they're the opinions. You know what I mean? And like I said, anywhere you are is the place to be. When you feel confident in your own self and you can stand up and say, hey, man, I don't know who you are, but this is who I am. Either accept me or I'm moving on. And that's life.
Yeah. Well, look, top performers, they don't go up there and think, oh, are they going to like me or are they not going to like me? They say, look, here I am. I hope you love me. If you don't, change the channel, or, bye, they have that thing. This is who I am. That they're real and stuff like that. Yes, it's very important. But yeah, get rid of all those negative, obnoxious people out of your life, and you will find that your world will brighten up and life becomes so much easier. It's amazing. I better jump so we get these other points, and we have two more we haven't covered. Another is the word reason. This is another inner intellectual sense. And that is the word reason. Reason is you hear things and you have this power of reason to say, no, that's not for me. Or, yeah, I like it. I'm going to do that. You're reasoning out. And that's why a lot of people I've gone through this before in one of the episodes, but between the ages of 1 and 6, you don't have that power of reasoning yet. That hasn't grown in yet. You don't start reasoning till 6 and 7. When that woman yells at you, or your mother or teacher or whatever yells at you and say, you're no good, and you're between the ages of 1 and 6, you don't have a reason to say, that woman's drunk. Who the hell does she think she's talking to? Where when you reach, 7 or 8 and you start getting this power of reason, you go, man, that woman, forget it, man. Who the hell she thinks she is? She can't tell me how to be who I am, things like that. So, yeah, reason is another one of those important things. And the last inner sense is memory. Now, I had to get out of a bad habit with memory myself. And that is, with memory, I've always had this thing with names, people's names. I can remember, I was thinking the other day, I can remember phone numbers of girlfriends that I had when I was a teenager. I can remember the phone numbers. Can't remember what name went to what number, kind of a thing like that. But everybody has a good memory. But you gotta exercise it. Just like with reason, with the will and your imagination, the ones we've gone through, these inner senses, You know, watch this several times, this episode, if you have to, or listen to it if you're on audio. But these inner senses, they're all very strong senses and will allow you to be indoors, stuck with yourself, but instead of having to reach and touch everything that's out there that you're not able to do, you're able to create things that other people, maybe through Zoom or whatever you're using or whatever, you know, you're creating things. You're creating your own future instead of watching your future go by you while these other people are just doing all these things and you're sitting there, oh, poor me. But, you know, folks, use these inner senses. Use your imagination. The funny one I always like is when people say, you know, Pooch, do you think outside the box? And I say, hell no, I think outside the straitjacket. Yeah, and these boxes, people put boxes around themselves. There's no such thing as thinking outside the box. There is no box. It's what people create and sometimes been put on them, you know, stay in this lane. You are not allowed to look out the window. You're not, you know, look down, study the, you know, like an authoritarian kind of figure and stuff. But these are senses that everybody has where you can create and control your own future, at least to some extent.
Yes. Yes. And yes. I mean, I don't think I have anything else to say to that. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot today because, I mean, mental health is huge. And then in episode 6 of Life in the Music Business, you can go back in the episodes, Staying Sane in the Music Industry. You can go and, I mean, we today we touched on a lot of different things, and I feel like it was super important. Pooch had brought it up to me that, you know, it's really a hard time out here, and there's a lot of just negative things going on. Restaurants closing. I mean, all of Philadelphia and majority of New York is basically like shut down. So I mean, it's not the same anymore. The cities are all suffering. A lot of people are suffering, especially now during the holidays and stuff. I mean, just try to keep the positive energy, and we're going to get through this together. I mean, they always say that we're all united as one, but I really feel that through music that we're able to actually be united as one, because music is a universal language for the entire world, and is something that we're able to touch people's feelings and their hearts and really get them to feel like they belong. And
that's really well put. And the thing is, instead of thinking about yourself and how poor you know, this and that, entertain others. You will find by helping others with your music and just helping hand, mentally calling up people, saying hi to people and stuff, you're helping them. I have this saying that everybody should do something special for at least one person every day. At least one person every day. You know, I'll give out a free book or this or that or whatever, or something like that. It's just, I believe in that. And it makes you feel good when you're helping other people.
of course, and it comes back around too. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to find out in life. The more good you give off, the more room you have made for good to come to you. It's science. I'm not going to get into the whole thing. You might think it's hogwash. I don't care what you think. I've known for a fact, the more good, the more I help other people, the more good that comes back to me. That certain vibration is just, it's fantastic.
yeah, Pooch. Well, I mean, we had an amazing show today. Again, thank you for everybody liking, subscribing, sharing, and spreading the word of Life in the Music Business. We are here to provide the knowledge and the understanding and how to use the knowledge to be able to get ahead in the music industry, and all the questions that you've always had that are unanswered and the internet can't provide. We are here to fill all the voids and show all the business side and the hidden side of the music industry, so that you guys can profit, you guys can make music, which is what it's always about, and spread the good word. And Pooch, you want to?
Yeah, and oh, by the way, if you have any questions you want us to cover, email ask at professorpooch.com. And by the way, go to ProfessorPooch.com. You'll see the show picture right in the beginning. You click on it, it'll tell you all about the show and all the different channels you can try out and stuff. Video or YouTube, everything else, we're all over the place, okay? So, yes, tune in for the next episode, people. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Tune in for the next episode.